I don't have an intro, so let's get right to the fucking show. This is Let's Talk Premier League. I'll be your host, Steven Radojicic, and we're going to talk about this last week's fixtures in the Premier League, starting with Manchester United versus Spurs. Game plan here is we're going to talk about each team for roughly a minute, so about 2 minutes per game, and we're going to talk about goal scorers, interesting players, and just overall my thoughts on the match. All right, let's kick this off with Manchester United versus Tottenham Hotspur. And timer is a go. All right, so first thing that I thought was Romero started in goal rather than De Gea due to the De Gea transfer rumor to Real Madrid. Romero had an excellent game, but a lot of fantasy managers, jumped on the bandwagon and picked him up into their team. But he's far from a given starter, given that De Gea has not solidified his transfer to Real Madrid. So bad move. Players that interested me as well. Darmian in the back line, who was a new signing for Manchester United. Thought he played really well. He was definitely an integral part of their attack, actually, as a defender. So I think he's a great pickup for any fantasy managers out there. Overall, the game kind of sucked. Not gonna lie, I woke up at like 4:30 in the morning to catch this game. I was pretty disappointed. Uh, Obviously, the own goal from Walker. So Rooney could have had that goal, but he got kind of robbed. Walker knocked it into his own net. That kind of covers Manchester United. So from a Spurs standpoint, wasn't really impressed with their performance either. Kane was pretty silent. I have him on my fantasy team. Again, the own goal from Walker. Uh, again, just not a very impressive performance for me. So I would avoid them for now. I think that covers it. So that was a little under 2 minutes. So we're kind of winging it here. So gonna go ahead and stop that, and we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next match, which was Bournemouth versus Aston Villa. Boom. All right. Uh, I picked up a lot of Bournemouth players coming in. Not a lot, but they were a good team in the championship, finished up top. So I thought, hey, maybe they'll do well in the Premier League. I had their goalie, keeper Baruch, and he had a decent performance, but overall, I just wasn't very impressed with the Bournemouth side. Lots of guys like Richie, Wilson were expected to come into the Premier League, have really good opening weeks, but they kind of struggled against Aston Villa. With that being said, Aston Villa was not very strong. They did not put on a great performance. So I'm a little bit worried about Bournemouth in the future. As for considerations as to who I would pick up for Bournemouth, if you're a fantasy manager, I still think Buric is a good 4.5 million option. But other than that, honestly, maybe Francis in the back, but I would steer clear of Bournemouth. They didn't impress me too much. So on to Aston Villa. A lot of questions going into the season. They lost their star striker Benteke. Who was going to step up? Would any of their new signings do anything? And again, wasn't very impressed. They barely squeezed by Bournemouth. I thought this could have easily been a 0-0 draw. They managed to snag the 3 points with a goal from Justide, or however the hell you pronounce that. But again, just not a convincing performance at all. They got the 3 points, so good for them, but I don't know. Wasn't too impressed with the Aston Villa performance. All right, we're hovering around 1 minute and 15 seconds for each one, so not full 2 minutes, but again, we're kind of winging it. So the next matchup is Everton versus Watford. I could not find a large Everton picture, so we're dealing with it. Boom, timer start. All right, this one was exciting. 2-2 draw. Unfortunately, I did not get to catch this one live, but some core points. Again, Lukaku back in his ways. A very good striker for Everton. He did his job. Off the bench came Kone. I was a little surprised about this. He generally, honestly, doesn't do anything. He got a goal and an assist. A lot of fantasy managers picked him up, and I think that's an awful, awful move. He's not going to get the playing time people are expecting him to do. He had one awesome week, so if you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence about getting Kone, I would avoid him like the plague because he is not going to start. At least, I mean, I don't think he is unless the manager has some crazy plan to use him, but I don't think he's the best call. Howard in goal did fairly well. I mean, gave in 2 goals to Watford, but he had like 3 or 4 saves, I want to say. So he had a decent performance. Other than that, Barkley did fairly well. He got himself a goal. So Everton, again, not convincing, but they had some attacking power, managed to get 2 goals in against Watford. On to Watford. I think the big surprise, in terms of like fantasy at least, was Layun. He was listed as I believe, a defender. He was playing out on the wing for most of the game. So he had a great performance again from an attacking standpoint. So if you're looking for an out of position defender, he might be a good go. Igalo had a fantastic preseason. I was keeping up with him on the preseason stuff, and I mean he did better than Dini. And Dini is their star striker. He managed to get an assist in this game. So it's hard to recommend Igalo though because I do think he will be coming off the bench for most games. So I don't know who I would recommend for Watford at this point. I mean, I still think Dini's the best call. He managed an assist, but I would I would avoid a Gallo for now. Layun might be a good call though. So that's Everton Watford. Hey, we're looking closer at 2 minutes now for each game. Cool, cool, cool. All right, next game we're gonna talk about is Leicester versus Sunderland. This was a crazy motherfucking game. So let's get that started. And so if you don't know, Leicester Sunderland finished 4-2. Leicester went fucking off in the beginning of this game. They started destroying, and that was shocking, honestly. Mahrez netted 2. Albrighton got 1. Vardy got 1. Albrighton with 2 assists, and Schlupp with an assist. Wow, that offensive firepower was impressive for a team given that they don't really have any stars on the team. Again, a lot of people went with Mahrez. While he is a fantastic player, I would wait to see if he's a little more consistent before you pick him up. Most people have already got him, though. I mean, he went up in like transfers in by like 100,000 or something insane this week. So if you grabbed him, awesome. I'm sure he'll perform well. Leicester doesn't have too difficult of like an opening fixture set, so I'm sure he'll do fine for you. Albrighton had again an awesome game. I'm sure he'll do all right. But Leicester, wow, they surprised me. For Sunderland, they managed to net 2, but again, not a very convincing performance. I mean, Leicester kind of ran all over them. Goals from Defoe and Fletcher, neither of them did much for me. Defoe might be a good nod at like a budget striker, but other than that, a lot of yellow cards for Sunderland. I mean, I feel like that's kind of typical Sunderland fashion. Like, other than that though, so from that game, I think the standout performances were definitely Mahrez and Albrighton. From a fantasy standpoint, not sure if I would grab either of them, but that's Leicester Sunderland. All right, moving along. Next game we've got is Norwich versus Crystal Palace. Boom. Crystal Palace had an awesome fucking game. They netted 3 with goals from Delaney, Zaha, and Cabaye. It was awesome to see Cabaye reunite with Alan Pardew. I think that's going to be an awesome partnership because Pardew's a fantastic manager. We saw him save Crystal Palace, and once he left Newcastle, they fell to shit last year. So I'm excited to see what Crystal Palace brings this year. Cabaye, awesome signing. I mean, he had a fantastic game. He got himself a goal. If you're looking at fantasy, he netted the 3 bonus points, so he's going to rise in value pretty quickly, I would argue. But keep in mind that Crystal Palace does not have the easiest set of opening fixtures, so he might not be the best grab. In terms of Norwich, not convincing. The new side, I have one of their defenders. I have the Song, and it's tough to hold on to him, but I have hope. I have hope. Reddy is a decent goalie. He had 4 saves. McCarthy 4 saves for Crystal Palace as well. Neither of them were able to keep the clean sheet, but honestly, not too much to say about this game. But Crystal Palace performed well. Norwich on the fence. We'll have to see kind of how they do in the future in the upcoming game weeks before I make any real like judgments on them. All right. One of the more shocking games of the weekend. Chelsea, Swansea. All right, Chelsea, Swansea. So Chelsea were not convincing. Goal from Oscar off a free kick. I saw this one live. The Oscar goal was nice. Everyone just left it. There was a little bit of an awkward moment where Oscar didn't know whether to celebrate or not. Some people are saying it was because Jose Mourinho may not have agreed with his decision, like to put the ball and essentially shoot. I still think it was more of a cross, but more likely than not, I think it was just he didn't know if anyone got a touch on it or not. So he waited to celebrate until he went crazy, or he waited to celebrate until it was figured out if anyone was going to claim it or not. So other than that, good assist from Azpilicueta. If you can even call it an assist, it was a week of weird assists. Azpilicueta got the assist because he got fouled, and then Oscar scored his goal. Willian had a bizarre shot that took a wild ricochet into the back corner, so he had an assist for that. Big news from this one though was Courtois getting a red card. I honestly don't think you can argue with that at all. I think it was a clear red card. They did appeal it, and it was not overturned, so he will not be able to play in the Manchester City clash next week. Something to keep in mind. Fantasy managers are trying to get rid of him, but it's only a one match ban, so if you want to hold on to him, you can. I would honestly only drop him unless you can't field a goalkeeper. So just keep that in mind. Begovic did well for them though. Once Courtois got pulled out, Begovic was rocking a lot of saves and he didn't let any goals go in. So that's something to keep in mind. Swansea, I was actually pretty impressed. IU was very involved in their attack. He was a new signing for them. He did rather well. Gomes up top. He did his job. Got himself a goal off the penalty, and but again, not convincing from Gomez. I would have liked to see more. A couple yellow cards from them. Fabianski did all right considering he was facing the Chelsea front line. Like you can't really ask for too much more. So I think good prospects on both those sides. A lot of people were dropping Hazard, but I think he'll turn up. He'll perform well. And hey, we hit the 2 minute timer for the first time. So I think I covered everything from that game. So we'll move along to this was a rough one for me. This was rough. Arsenal, West Ham. So if you haven't heard from the Arsenal West Ham game, West Ham defeated the Gunners 2-0, and oh, I always get so excited at the beginning of the season, and then I always get let down on that opening week. It was rough. The team Arsenal just played like shit, let me tell you. Ozil wasn't involved in like anything. Giroud struggled. It was just all around. It was weak. Outplayed by West Ham entirely. I think one of the most interesting parts of this game was Payet's overall involvement. He had a fantastic game, heavily involved in all the attacks. He's their new signing at 7.5 million on fantasy. If you want to look into him, I think he's going to continue to perform and do fantastic. Adrian, sorry, had one hell of a game in goal. 6 saves, no goals allowed for Arsenal. Given they weren't, honestly, a lot of their chances weren't fantastic. I saw like post match, Arsenal had like 20 shots, which honestly didn't feel like it. I felt like they weren't fucking doing anything. So if they had 20 shots, so be it. Adrian made some good saves. Um, Again, standout players from that. Look at Payet. Look at Adrian. The defense looked solid. Their back line, I mean, they did their job, even though they gave up 20 shots. Like, again, it didn't feel like it when I was watching. Alexi Sanchez came into the game late for Arsenal. He kind of brought some life to the squad, so I'm sure, I mean, everyone knows he's going to perform well for them, but it was a different Arsenal without him. So if you're looking at picking up someone from the Arsenal midfield, if you've got the money, grab Sanchez. If not, God, I don't know who the fuck to recommend. I mean, it was awful. I have Ozil on my team, and I love him to death. I mean, I'm an Ozil guy. Like you can't see, but I got him on my kit here. Love him, but it was a weak game because Orla didn't do much. Oxlade-Chamberlain had a halfway decent game actually. So I mean, I don't know if he's going to be starting so much once Alexi comes back, but just things to keep in mind. Check. Oh my God, I got to talk about check mistakes. It was brutal. It was brutal. We're out of time, but oh, killed me. That game killed me. All right. And we move along to Newcastle versus Southampton. All right, Newcastle Southampton finished 2-2. I didn't watch the game, so to be honest, I can't say too much about it. But from what I heard, Southampton could have easily won the game. They were performing pretty well. Kind of the usuals in terms of involvement. Pele got himself a goal. Unfortunately, Mane didn't do anything. I have him on my fantasy team. I still think he's a good nod at 8, but he didn't perform the first game. I think hopefully he shows up next week. We'll see. Cedric, their new signing in the back, did well. Very involved up front. It looked like he was actually being kind of like forced back, like he wasn't allowed to get involved as much. So hopefully the manager will recognize his offensive presence and allow him to kind of move forward with the attack, and he can be a guy who makes crosses from the wings. Lots of yellow cards for Southampton. Yeah, interesting part was they had some big defensive changes, and all in all, I thought they did decently defensively. Like they were definitely missing some of their stars from last year. That became apparent. But Stekelenburg did well in goal. They're back. Cedric, Fonte did their job for the most part, so wouldn't be too worried about Southampton. Let's talk Newcastle because they had a lot of new signings. Wijnaldum, hopefully that's how you fucking pronounce that. I don't know. He scored himself a goal, so he had a solid game. Cisse got himself a goal up top, so I think he'll do well for Newcastle up front. Let's see. Mitrovic was one of their new signings. He got a yellow card, didn't do much other than that. Again, right now I'm looking at stats because I didn't watch the game. So take everything I'm saying from this game with a grain of salt. But people to look at, maybe Cisse. I don't know. Wijnaldum, I liked him as a seven. I feel like he'll like perform. He'll do well. He did excellent last season. Not in the Premier League from wherever he was at. I remember reading that. But other than that, yeah, that kind of covers that game. So boom, look at that. All right. Let's move along to Stoke, Liverpool. This game was another one where I wasn't extremely impressed with anyone's performance. I thought overall Liverpool struggled. Like I wasn't sure if they were going to manage to get the win. Uh, they had Benteke. I have him on my fantasy team. He didn't do much of anything this game. Again, hoping he shows up next week, but I wasn't incredibly impressed with his performance. Coutinho had one hell of a fucking goal though. If you saw that, it was like a 25, 30 yard crack from the left side. Beautiful. So luckily they had Coutinho because otherwise I think that would have been like a 0-0 draw. In terms of Stoke, uh, they're getting a lot of rep for bringing in some big name players. I think the newest rumor, or it might even be confirmed at this point, I'm not 100% certain. By the time you're watching this, I feel like it'll be confirmed, but uh, Xherdan Shaqiri will be joining the Stoke squad. So any Potters out there have that to look forward to. I'm sure he'll perform well. So I mean, they've got Bohan, Affalay, uh, yeah. So they have a lot of potential to do well this year. I think they'll be a fun team to watch out for. So this game though struggled, didn't really make anything happen up front. I mean, again, 0 goals, nothing, not too much good build-up play. They struggled, but again, Liverpool kind of struggled too. So it was just a weird game, not much going on. So that's kind of all I have to say about that one. And I did watch that one live, if you were wondering. So I can kind of speak to. I have some knowledge from that one. Moving on to the last game of the week, which happened on Monday afternoon. I'm in the U.S. Pacific time, so who knows what fucking time that is for everyone else. But it was a Monday game, so we had West Brom versus Man City. Man City was by far performed the best this week. I mean, they fucking destroyed West Brom. Possession, I want to say, was somewhere around like 71-29. Like it wasn't even a game. If you watched that first half, you would have thought Man City was playing like a third division side. It was pretty bad. Yaya Toure fucking killed it this week. If he goes back, so if you followed Man City at all for the last couple of years, you know that 2 years ago Yaya Toure had an awesome season, and he's generally like a center defensive mid, but he would push forward. He kind of played like an old school like Michael Essien. He would get very involved in attacks, love to take long shots. Last season we didn't really see that from him, but wow, like on Monday we saw that. He managed to net 2 goals, had a hell of a shot on like a layoff from Boney. It was beautiful. Man City performed very well. The one guy I had on my team though from Man City, Sterling, didn't do much. I think he'll strive when Man City plays closer games though, because he's going to be integral to their counterattack. And against West Brom, they never had to counterattack. So I think it's hard to blame him. But again, fantasy managers, you're going to see a lot of people getting rid of him for maybe Silva, maybe Torre now because he had such a kick-ass game. But I still have hope for Sterling, so I'm gonna hold on to him for now, and we'll see where that goes. Quick talk about West Brom. I mean, they looked weak defensively. They didn't do anything. They sat back a lot, so they had some big signings up front, right? Ricky Lambert, not a new signing, but Berahino is always good for them up front, and it just felt like they were being forced back a lot. Like there were oftentimes 9, 10 guys behind the ball. Their back line was like at the 18 or further back, so like they were never able to counter anything if they got the ball. It was like Ricky Lambert versus 4 with no help. So I mean, West Brom's got to figure out that shit. But overall, this game, weak performance from West Brom, dominating performance from Man City. They deserve to be at the top of the table. That's my time for that game. So I think that covers every game. So now we're just going to talk about the standout players and I guess my recommendations for who I would consider picking up if you are a fantasy manager. So let's see. I am on fantasypremierleague.com right now. I'm just going to look at total scores. Or I'll look at the top couple people and I'll say whether I think they're a good pickup or a bad pickup. Adrian for West Ham right now is the top goalkeeper. Total score of 11 from this week. I have him, and while I didn't start him against Arsenal, because I mean, who the fuck would have started him against Arsenal? I picked him because he has an awesome rotation with the Bournemouth keeper. So I mean, their next couple games, Leicester, Bournemouth, like he's gonna do well, I think. So he might be a good grab. Romero for Man U, for the love of God, please do not fucking pick him up. He is by no means a guaranteed starter, and at 5 million, you can pick up someone much better, i.e., Adrian, who I just mentioned. Let's talk defenders. Vincent Company for Man City at 6. I mean, he's a good guy. Like he'll perform. And obviously, the Man City defense is generally pretty solid. But I mean, I don't know. At 6.0, you can there's tons of people you can get. So you'll have to make up your decision there. Gomez for Liverpool. He picked up 11. Again, can't recommend him. He played in the left back slot. They've already got Alberto Moreno. They're considering getting another left back, I believe. I saw some rumors about that. So I would steer clear of Gomez. Smalling for Man U, a solid player on a solid team. I mean, again, at 6.0, I don't know. Tons of people you can get at 6.0, like really good options. So the one I ended up getting actually for this week, I grabbed Darmian from Man U. I thought he had a great performance. I thought he was involved in the attack pretty well. He contributed very well to the team. So 80 minutes played. I believe what's his name, Valencia came in for him. So I think Darmian will get the starts though. So let's talk midfielders. Yaya Toure. Again, if he plays how he did 2 years ago, I think he's an awesome pickup. If he plays how he did last year, hard to recommend. But based on what I saw from this weekend, I mean, he's the Yaya from 2 years ago. So at 8.5, he's a steal. Mahrez for Leicester. Everyone's kind of knee-jerk buying him, and I think out of all the knee-jerks, he might be the best. He's a solid player. He performed well this weekend, obviously, and he's had decent seasons in the past. I think he's one of the stars at Leicester, and they don't have a too bad of upcoming fixtures, so he might be a good guy to look at. Albrighton, if you're gonna get a Leicester guy, I would get Mahrez, but you know what? Hey, Albrighton also had a good day, so who knows? I think the big one here, in the fourth slot, Johan Cabaye for Crystal Palace. He's an awesome pickup. I avoided him because his next 5 games are Arsenal, Aston Villa, Chelsea, Man City, and Spurs. Holy shit, that is a hard fucking like next 5 games. So I'm waiting on Cabaye, but honestly, it's hard to wait when he puts up a performance like that on the opening week. So if you want him, go for it. If not, wait until like game week 7 or so. Up top in the forwards, let's see. Oh my God, highest scoring forward is Kone from Everton. Selected by 2.7% of people. I bet that's all people who got him after this week. Yeah. Don't get Kone. Lukaku's obviously gonna get the nod. Kone played 28 fucking minutes and he happened to get a goal and an assist. Like that is not normal. Like this is a one hit wonder. I apologize if he then comes and does it again next week, but I think he's a terrible grab. So I would avoid him. Zarate for West Ham. Again, hard to recommend. Played 62 minutes. Managed a goal against Arsenal. I mean that's my Gunners. And Igalo for Watford. Igalo again. I talked about this during the main show, but hard to recommend. He's gonna come off the bench more likely than not. He only played 17 minutes this week, and again had an awesome preseason, which is unfortunate that he's not a main starter because it seems like he's really fucking good. So hard to recommend though. I think that about covers it for this week of Let's Talk Premier League. If you're joining us for the first time, which you fucking are because this is the first show, thanks for stopping by. I'm gonna be trying to put these out Tuesday nights US time, so like Wednesday in Europe. Um, thanks for stopping by. It was fun. I'm looking forward to doing this again next week. So hopefully you learned something about this week in the Premier League. And yeah, look forward to seeing y'all again next week. Woo.